We are reading from Caitanya Caritamrira, Adi Leela, chapter 7, text 72. Murkha tumi tomara nahi ka vedanta dikara. Murkha tumi tomara nahi ka vedanta dikara. Krishna mantra japa sada ei mantra sara. Krishna mantra japa sada ei mantra sara. So we'll do word for word. Murkha tumi, you are a fool. Tomara, your. Nahika, there is not. Vedanta philosophy. Adhikara, qualification to study. Krishna mantra, the hymn of Krishna, Hare Krishna. Japa, chant. Sada, always. This. Mantra, hymn. Sara, essence of all Vedic knowledge. So we'll be reading the translation. You are a fool, he said. You are not qualified to study Vedanta philosophy, and therefore you must always chant the holy name of Krishna. This is the essence of all mantras or Vedic hymns. Please repeat. You are a fool, he said. You are not qualified to study Vedanta philosophy, and therefore you must always chant the holy name of Krishna. This is the essence of all mantras or Vedic hymns. So Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki jai. So this is Lord Chaitanya speaking to Prakashananda Saraswati, saying that this is what his spiritual master, Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master, told him. So purport, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj comments in this connection, one can become perfectly successful in the mission of his life if he acts exactly according to the words he hears from the mouth of his spiritual master. This acceptance of the words of the spiritual master is called Shrota Vakya, which indicates that the disciple must carry out the spiritual master's instructions without deviation. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks in this connection that a disciple must accept the words of his spiritual master as his life and soul. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here confirms this by saying that since his spiritual master ordered him only to chant the holy name of Krishna, he always chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra according to this direction. Krishna mantra japa sada ei mantra sara. Krishna is the origin of everything. Therefore, when a person is fully Krishna conscious, it is to be understood that his relationship with Krishna has been fully confirmed. Lacking Krishna consciousness, he is only partially related with Krishna and is therefore not in his constitutional position. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the spiritual master of the entire universe, he nevertheless took the position of a disciple in order to teach by example how a devotee should strictly follow the orders of a spiritual master in executing the duty of always chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. One who is very much attracted to the study of Vedanta philosophy must take lessons from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this age, no one is actually competent to study Vedanta, and therefore it is better that one chant the holy name of the Lord. which is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, as Krishna himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita. Vedaischa sarve aham eva vedyo vedanta krid vedavid eva chaham. By all the Vedas am I to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. That's Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Only fools give up the service of the spiritual master and think themselves advanced in spiritual knowledge. In order to check such fools, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself presented the perfect example of how to be a disciple. A spiritual master knows very well how to engage each disciple in a particular duty, but if a disciple, thinking himself more advanced than his spiritual master, gives up his orders and acts independently, he checks his own spiritual progress. Every disciple must consider himself completely unaware of the science of Krishna and must always be ready to carry out the orders of the spiritual master to become competent in Krishna consciousness. A disciple should always remain a fool before his spiritual master. Therefore, sometimes pseudo-spiritualists accept a spiritual master who is not even fit to become a disciple because they want to keep him under their control. This is useless for spiritual realization. One who perfectly knows Krishna consciousness cannot know Vedanta philosophy. One who imperfectly knows Krishna consciousness cannot know Vedanta philosophy. A showy display of Vedanta study without Krishna consciousness is a feature of the external energy, Maya, and as long as one is attracted by the inebriaties of this ever-changing material energy, he deviates from devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An actual follower of Vedanta philosophy is a devotee of Lord Vishnu, who is the greatest of the great and the maintainer of the entire universe. Unless one surpasses the field of activities in service to the limited, one cannot reach the unlimited. Knowledge of the unlimited is actual Brahmagnan, or knowledge of the Supreme. Those who are addicted to fruitive activities and speculative knowledge cannot understand the value of the holy name of Lord Krishna, who is always completely pure, eternally liberated and full of spiritual bliss. One who has taken shelter of the holy name of the Lord, which is identical with the Lord, does not have to study Vedanta philosophy, for he has already completed all such study. One who is unfit to chant the holy name of Krishna, but thinks that the holy name is different from Krishna and thus takes shelter of Vedanta study in order to understand him, must be considered a number one fool, as confirmed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by his personal behavior, and philosophical speculators who want to make Vedanta philosophy an academic career are also considered to be within the material energy. A person who always chants the holy name of the Lord, however, is already beyond the ocean of nations, and thus even a person in a low family who engages in chanting the holy name of the Lord is to be beyond the study of Vedanta philosophy. In this connection, the Srimad Bhagavatam states, Aho bhatta swapacho to garyan yajivagre vartate nama tubhyam te pustapaste juvuhu sasnur arya brahmanur nama grananti ye. If a person born in a family of dog eaters takes to the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, it is to be understood that in his previous life he must have executed all kinds of austerities and penances and performed all the Vedic yagyas. Bhagavatam 3:33-7. Another quotation states, Rig Vedo ata Yajur Veda Sama Vedo api atharvanaha adita stena yenoktam harir iti akshara vayam. A person who chants the two syllables Hari has already studied the four Vedas, Sama, Rig, Yaju and Atharva. Taking advantage of these verses, there are some Sahajiyas who, taking everything very cheaply, consider themselves elevated Vaishnavas, but do not care even to touch the Vedanta Sutras or Vedanta philosophy. A real Vaishnava should, however, study Vedanta philosophy, but if after studying Vedanta one does not adopt the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, he is no better than a Mayavadi. Therefore one should not be a Mayavadi, yet one should not be unaware of the subject of Vedanta philosophy. Indeed, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his knowledge of Vedanta in his discourses with Prakashananda Saraswati. Thus it is to be understood that a Vaishnava should be completely conversant with Vedanta philosophy, yet he should not think that studying Vedanta is all in all, and therefore be unattached to the chanting of the holy name. A devotee must know the importance of simultaneously understanding Vedanta philosophy and chanting the holy names. If by studying Vedanta one becomes an impersonalist, he has not been able to understand Vedanta. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Vedanta means the end of all knowledge. The ultimate end of knowledge is knowledge of Krishna, who is identical with his holy name. Chief Vaishnavas, Sahajiyas, do not care to study the Vedanta philosophy as commented upon by the four Acharyas. In the Gaudiya Sampradaya there is a Vedanta commentary called the Govinda Bhashya, but the Sahajiyas consider such commentaries to be untouchable philosophical speculation, and they consider the Acharyas to be mixed devotees. Thus they clear their way to hell. So this is a very long purport, so I've just taken a few things from this purport that I'll talk about. So one is I'm just going to list the different spiritual masters, because Prabhupada in this purport is stressing the very great importance, as shown by the personal example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of following the spiritual master. So I'll just give a brief outline of the spiritual masters from Prabhupada's books, and I'll speak about the holy name as well, because in the purport it's talking about how Krishna and the holy name are equal. So in Caitanya Caritamrira Madhya Leela 8.128 purport, it lists all the three types of gurus or spiritual masters. So one is the Vardhma Pradarshaka Guru, is the guru that first brings us to Krishna consciousness, the one who we make first contact with, and we start practicing Krishna consciousness. And then we also have Diksha Guru, that's the spiritual master who gives us formal initiation and gives us the instructions on the regulations of the Shastras. And then we have, so Diksha Guru, there's only one Diksha or initiating Guru. It's not authorized to take more than one Diksha Guru. And also the Vardhma Pradarshaka Guru is the one person who brings us in touch with Krishna consciousness. Then we have another category, that's the Shiksha Gurus, and these are spiritual masters or devotees who give us instructions that help us for elevation or progress in Krishna consciousness. So Siksha Gurus, we may have many Siksha Gurus, so it's not necessarily that it could be even devotees practicing. We could take instructions or shiksha from, there's the sage who was asked, who are your gurus, and he was in the forest, so there was no apparent any humans around, any devotees, but he took instructions from the different elements in nature of the bird and the spider, for example. He took the instruction of the eagle, that the bird that had got a piece of meat, and then two other birds attacked it, so it had to save its life, so it thought, okay, I'll let go of that piece of meat, and then he survived. So from that example the sage learned that we should not be attached to anything in the material world, because that binds us, and then if that bird had kept that meat, it would have been attacked very viciously by the other two birds and would have died. So we have the Siksha Guru, and then in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.9.38 purport, it talks about another Guru, which Prabhupada also mentions in this purport. It's the Chaitya Guru, and in that purport it says, when a living entity desires to serve the Lord in transcendental service, the Lord helps the devotee in so many ways as the Chaitya Guru or the spiritual master within, and thus the devotee can make progress in many wonderful activities beyond material estimation. So we should always understand that it's without the mercy of the spiritual master we cannot make any progress either materially or spiritually. So we also have gurus materially. We go to study under medical practice because we are learning from the guru who knows about being a doctor. So we cannot be successful in any way without the guidance of the spiritual master. And also Prabhupada mentions in the purport that one shouldn't become too proud and think that, okay, now I have the knowledge, and reject the spiritual master. One should always remain humble, knowing that this knowledge is coming from my authorities or my gurus, without whose mercy I cannot make any progress. So as soon as if one neglects the orders of the spiritual master, and for us practically we see that the spiritual master is giving us the instructions as per the scriptures of following the 4 regulative principles, and the most important instructions is chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And for one who has taken formal initiation, chanting minimum 16 rounds mandatory is required. So from there I will talk about the danger of disobedience to a great soul, because Prabhupada mentions in this purport, and Lord Chaitanya is also mentioning that. So in Srimad Bhagavatam 279 purport, it talks about danger of disobedience to a great soul. So in there it was talking about King Vena, who was a very demoniac king, and he didn't follow the instructions of the sages in ruling the kingdom. So in that purport it says, long life, obedience, good reputation, righteousness, prosperity of being promoted to higher planets, and blessings of great personalities are all vanquished simply by disobedience to the great soul. So we can understand how grave and how serious it is that we should be very mindful of following the guidance of the bona fide acharyas, the gurus, and those who are practicing Krishna consciousness. So we have the example of the Yadu princes, even though this is a leela, because they are the family and descendants of Lord Krishna, but we can learn from this pastime, that's in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.3.24 purport, where the Yadus, they decided, they made fun of the sages, and one of them, Samba, dressed up his male, and he dressed up as a pregnant lady, and then they went to the sages and they said, oh, what child am I going to get? So just by this teasing and taking it very lightly with the holy persons, they were cursed that the whole Yadu dynasty will be annihilated. So even those descendants of Krishna, so this is how serious and grave it is, that one should not think whatever position I'm in or whatever progress I've made, that I am waived of any responsibility or consequences of my actions. So in that purport it says, one should therefore take great care and attention not to commit an offense at the feet of a devotee of the Lord. So in the following 4 verses after 28 purport, it says, the whole incident was a warning to all concerned that no one should behave lightly with the Vaishnavas, with the saints and Vaishnavas. So Prabhupada mentions it time and again in his purports from the previous acharyas as well, that how grave and serious this is, that following the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. And also it is very serious, but at the same time it's not that we should be fearful. Just try to be humble and sincere, understand that wherever we are in spiritual life, be humble that this is where I want to go, but maybe this is where I am, and humbly keep practicing and following, because by serving the devotees, then we get the blessings to actually make progress. There's one verse also which says, a lame man can walk and a dumb man can speak. And this is not just poetry, this is actual realization, because in Srimad Bhagavatam we hear of many, sometimes most fallen personalities and how great they have become, and yet they are so humble. It's only by the mercy of the devotees. I remember Kadamba Swami, when he comes, he often mentions, we are the product of the Vaishnava's mercy, that without the mercy of the devotees, we are nothing at all. And we should always remember our humble position, that it's with their mercy that we are able to carry on with our services and our material duties as well in connection with Krishna. Okay, so now I'll talk about the other point that Prabhupada mentioned, is that the holy name of Krishna is non-different. So in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.8 purport, it talks about the transcendental sound received from the right source. So one other aspect is that in connection with the spiritual masters and the holy name, is that the holy name is non-different from Krishna, but it should be received from the right source. So in that purport it says, the secret of success is to receive the holy sound from the right source of a bona fide spiritual master. Then the path of liberation is guaranteed. So I remember my Guru Maharaj, he also mentioned there's one person who is not even a Vaishnava, and he is very famous and he chants Hare Krishna, and even I've heard some devotees listen to him. So it's very dangerous listening from the lips of someone. His name is Krishna Das, and he usually we don't mention it, but I'm just in relation to, just want to stress the importance of hearing from the lips of someone who's not a devotee, because I've heard devotees also put on his kirtan that in an interview, my Guru Maharaj was mentioning that someone was interviewing this person, and he says, so you chant this Krishna? And he says, yes, I chant this, and he used the S word, referring to the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we should be very careful in everything we do. We shouldn't take anything lightly. And sometimes we are not conscious, so it's very important to first be conscious of everything we do in all our activities. And it says in that same purport, mundane manufactured sound has no potency, and as such, seemingly transcendental sound received from an unauthorized person also has no potency. So one may go on chanting even for many lifetimes, but if it's not received from the right source and with the right mood, then it's all waste of time. And this human form of life is very rare. There's 8,400,000 species. Do we really want to go around again and go through all that hellish experiences of life, of birth, death, old age and disease? We should really, and I'm also speaking this for myself, so I'm very grateful for Garuda Prabhu to ask me, because it's for my purification. Also to say this, because I'm speaking for myself, to myself as well. It stresses again, the disciple, however, must be ready to execute the order of the bona fide spiritual master, and that is the duty of the disciple, to be completely faithful and execute the orders of the bona fide spiritual master. So also in the purport of 3929, it says, any person authorized by either the Lord or by his bona fide representative is already blessed. And in other words, is entrusted by the Lord to give this knowledge. So we have the spiritual masters following the bona fides, gurus and saints, and also hearing from them because they are authorized to give these instructions, and also be very careful and mindful of disobeying the instructions of the saints. So there's one also purport in 2.10.4, it talks about obedience. So I remember once I posted something and there's a quote where it says obedience is very important, and someone was saying, where is that? Prabhupada is saying obedience. But this word comes up many times in the Prabhupada's purport, because we are identifying the word obedience on a material level, because generally in the material world, when we abide by someone, when we obedient to someone, they may take advantage of us, and they want to push us down and always keep us in a low position and themselves in a high position. But this obedience on a spiritual level is so uplifting, because when we are abiding by the instructions of the gurus, then we are getting blessings. It says the only means to attain eternal life is to go back home, back to Godhead, where there is no more rebirth as in the material planets. And this is only achievable when we are sincerely trying to follow the scriptures as instructed by the holy persons. In that same purport, it says the surrendered rulers and the pure devotees are always surrendered, and they under the control of the Lord, and thus they are able to carry out the orders of Krishna and the previous acharyas. So in the morning, every morning we say the 10 offenses, and then at the end we say it is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. But actually it sounds very minor, but it's not exactly it is also an offense. It is the root cause of all offenses. Inattentive chanting, my Guru Maharaj also mentioned, is the root cause of all offenses, whether Vaishnava aparad, Seva aparad, offenses in service, and offenses in worshipping the deity. All these can be eradicated by attentive chanting. So I was thinking, how is that possible? Because also in this purport, Lord Chaitanya and Prabhupada is mentioning that one should not only have firm conviction in the holy name, but also study the Vedanta. So on one hand, he's saying, my spiritual master said that I'm a fool and I should chant the holy name of the Lord. But Prabhupada clarifies this, that when Lord Chaitanya is talking to Prakashananda Saraswati, that he's not only just sentimentally chanting the holy name, he's understanding the whole philosophy, but he doesn't put himself in a high position. So we should always understand, unless someone is qualified and humble, then we shouldn't instruct them on this, otherwise they become offensive. We should understand, and we need to be humble, that we need to help that person first to become a little bit purified, and then they are humble enough and willing to accept all the instructions and what we are following to get purified. And it's a gradual thing, and it should be done also very carefully, not that we give the whole philosophy in one go. We need to understand that person's psychophysical nature and where they are at this stage, and then gradually, gently bring them to Krishna consciousness. So I also wanted to talk about the holy name of the Lord is non-different, and it's very powerful. In fact, it is mentioned that the holy name is even more merciful than Krishna himself, because there's no qualification required. So in order to do deity worship, we are required to chant the holy names of the Lord, but there's also other requirements. But when we're chanting the holy name of the Lord, there's no bar or no qualification required, like we see. We go for Harinam, even people who are not following any of the regulated principles and they're committing abominable sinful acts, and they may be like making fun and chanting Hare Krishna, and they're getting purified. So the holy name is actually even more merciful. It says not different from Krishna, but even more merciful than Krishna himself. So I just want to also mention about it says disobedience to the saints and holy persons. So this is a great caution. Prabhupada uses the word caution in one of the purports, that we should be very careful in our dealings with the devotees. And I had mentioned, like in the previous class, how Lord Caitanya, he was very careful. When he was having a spiritual debate with the Digvijay Pandit, and he had his disciples and they were also listening in on the debate, and they were kind of laughing because Lord Caitanya had defeated this Digvijay Pandit, who was undefeatable all over the kingdom. And then Lord Caitanya immediately stopped them, and in privacy he chastised the Digvijay Pandit and instructed him. So we should be very careful. We see it even nowadays, how publicly and on the public forum and even amongst talking with each other, and I'm also telling this to myself, that we shouldn't talk about someone's mistakes or how someone is behaving in a public forum. These things need to be addressed either directly with that person or through the authority. We shouldn't think that, oh, I've been around the movement in the 70s, it was not like that, or in the 80s, it was not like this. Whatever level we are on, we shouldn't put ourselves in a position where we can just go publicly blaspheming and talking about someone's faults. I was listening to one class by Urmila Mataji actually. She was saying that if someone pretends to be our friend and then we find out later that they are criticizing us, and then we don't want anything to do with that person. But Krishna is so merciful that he's always in our heart as the super soul, and he never leaves us. And the person makes a mistake. So what I got out of there was that, okay, someone is criticizing someone and they're being offensive. There's two aspects. On one side, the one who is experiencing that offense or observing it, we should be also careful, and I'm telling this to myself, not to become offensive to that person who's being offensive, and just not take sides and just be very careful. Let the authorities deal with it, because it may escalate into something very grievous, and Vaishnava aparadha is very dangerous. And the one who is actually doing it, because we may also, or we have committed offenses to devotees, so we make that mistake, and then we take the humble position and we go to that person and apologize, and then just be quiet. I was just listening also to my Guru Maharaj, Bir Krishna Goswami. He's been giving classes recently online, and I was listening. He was talking about the pastime of Kaliya the serpent, and how Kaliya, in the end, he actually begged forgiveness from Krishna, and he became a devotee. So my Guru Maharaj was saying he's actually become a bhakta. But then, because he's a new bhakta, then Krishna instructed him that you need to go away from the Yamuna river, because you will be committing offenses to the holy persons and the sages who will be coming here, because they'll be drinking the water and the water will become poisoned and contaminated. So it's not that we should say, oh, Kaliya, he's a vicious demon. He became a bhakta, so we need to respect him as a bhakta, but we understand where he's at. So that's why Krishna instructed him to go away from the Yamuna. So Krishna consciousness is for everyone, and we all make mistakes. And if someone is keep committing offenses, we keep a respectful distance, but we should also be mindful ourselves that who are we to also judge that person. If it's very disturbing us so much, or if it's someone close to us that they have done that, then we can respectfully address it and then deal with it afterwards in a private way. Because these kind of things, we need to be very careful that they are dealt with confidentially and privately. So, because sometimes when also new people come, or even those who are practicing for a while, if we hear these things, we get disturbed and we may start taking sides and that. So we need to protect ourselves and protect the other devotees. So I'll just quickly summarize. We talked about the different gurus, and we talked about how the holy name is non-different from Krishna and in fact more merciful. And we talked about how we should be very careful in our dealings with the devotees. So if anyone has any questions or comments or corrections. Anyone have any questions?
Just thinking, in the purport, it's really nice, really long purport. It's really nice explanation that we can't understand Krishna simply by studying Vedanta. So Prabhupada said something like, if one thinks the name of Krishna is not different from Krishna, and therefore he tries to understand Krishna by studying Vedanta instead of simply chanting the holy name. Maybe I forgot what he said, it's not very intelligent or something like that. I just thinking that that's really significant. It's a really significant point. It's like we can't understand Krishna by all these like mental exercises, but simply by chanting his name, which is not different from Krishna, we become purified and eligible to understand him. So it's a very simple process of accepting Krishna's name rather than going to try to understand Krishna by all these different means. And then at the same time, Prabhupada says that doesn't mean that we neglect philosophy and become, so spoke about Sahaja's tendency to not study philosophy, not study the Vedanta philosophy, and think that they're very advanced in the chanting of the holy name. So it's kind of like both are there. Our acharyas are very philosophically adept, and so I found that to be a very nice point also, that it's not either or necessarily, but like we chant Hare Krishna, but then we also understand the philosophy behind it.
Thank you for bringing that up. Also from what you said, I was just remembering that if one is just chanting, then one also needs to study the philosophy, as you mentioned in the purport, and that is only possible when we are in the association of devotees. That's why the key is to stay in the association of devotees, then we can chant. So it's all like interlinked, even though sometimes some emphasis is on the holy name. Hearing, so there's that verse, Sadhu Sangha Nam Kirtan Bhagavad Shravana Mathura Vas Shimurtira Shraddhaya Sevana. So in CC Madhya 22:128 it says, one should associate with devotees, that's the five limbs of devotional service, chant the holy name of the Lord, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's also in the association of devotees, reside at Mathura and worship the deity with faith and veneration. So these 5 things, angas of bhakti, are very important. just want to quickly touch on, it says the root cause of all offences is inattentive chanting. I was listening to on the podcast Urmila Mataji's giving one in Detroit on attentive chanting, and she was just giving a few key things about having the right timing to chant the holy name of the Lord. So it's a good class to listen to, whether we've been practicing for a while or just started. It's always good to keep going back to these and keep working on our devotional practice in the association of devotees. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Caitanya Caritamrira ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.